Boatworks today is sponsored by Total Boat and Alexial Yacht Coatings, as well as supported by the generosity from the beautiful folks over on Patreon. Thank you so much. So, welcome back everybody. I hope you're all having a great weekend. My name is Andy with Boatworks today. In this video, I'm pretty much getting my ass handed to me from this transom. So, let's just get started. So check this out. I'm not quite sure what's going on, but I think it's something good. So all I'm using here is it's the Total Boat, it's their dewaxer and cleaner. But there's something very interesting going on when I pour some of this back behind this panel of G10. Can you hear that? But now I don't know what's going on, but it's doing something. I don't know if it's debonding the 5200 from the G10, or if it's debonding the fiberglass, last fiberglass layer that was laid against the transom before the G10, if it's separating that. But it's definitely doing something. There's a whole lot of snap, crackle, and pop going on. And then after I pour it in, let it sit for 10-15 minutes, I'm able to drive my the crowbar further in, and it's peeling off pretty well. I gotta open up my other can, but basically, all I'm doing is I'm pouring it in right behind here. Now you can see there's the glass starting to delaminate, but this was laid up by the person before me. This is right here. This is the original glass. This is something new that he or she put over. I'm not quite sure why, but that seems to be the layer that's delaminating. Now when I'm pouring this, I'm gonna try and get this cleaner back behind here, so it kind of helps to separate this a little bit more. So the G10 was bonded onto this layer of glass, which was laid up after the fact. You can see it's, kind of running a little right along the top here. This is well, I'm guessing this is original, just because this is the color of everything else on the boat. Whereas this brown stuff is that cheap, I'm guessing it's the cheap automotive style, polyester resin. But I'm able to separate the new stuff back from this old stuff. Now listen what happens when I pour this in. Now hopefully the camera's able to pick that up, but something is dissolving. I don't know what it is. It's probably not the 5200. It might be, but it sounds like it's more or less melting the old, what I'm guessing is cheap ass resin that was used for the glasswork. Either way, it seems like it's going to make this process a lot easier, because then I don't have to break the bond of the 5200. I just need to break the bond of whatever the 5200 is stuck onto, and that seems to be coming off Well, now that I finally figured out this little hack here, I suspect it's going to start moving along quite a bit better. The unfortunate thing is, it's taken me the better part of this week to figure this out. Well, we shall see. So this is not something I really ever want to do again, but that said, I am glad that I did it, because it answered a few questions for me and it showed me a few things. The first one being it answered one of the questions I had of not knowing if this was originally a single or a twin inboard. And as it turns out, it was a twin I/O. You got an old keyhole here as well as one here. The biggest thing that it showed me is that this transom, all this material here, this is original. So this transom had never been replaced. So when they did the modification of mounting the bracket and going through the process of beefing this up, the transom itself, the original, was never touched. It was never replaced. Now, I went over this with a moisture meter, and I don't really know if that's such a big deal because the moisture meter, it's dry. There's no delamination. It's, by all rights, it's in good shape, which is good. But it also still brings up a little bit of a dilemma for me because even though it's the plywood in here is in good shape, it's still plywood. Now, so I'm not quite sure because all the beefing up that I'm going to be doing, or the adding I'm going to be doing on here, is going to be with Kusa. And the main reason I'm going with Kusa for pretty much everything on this project is because it doesn't rot. It can't rot. It doesn't absorb moisture. So it leaves me with a little bit of a dilemma here, because on one hand, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to rip out a transom when there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's as solid as a rock. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not really designed to handle twin outboards off of a bracket. That's the only shortcoming, but we're going to be managing that. But on the other hand, it doesn't also make sense to be beefing all this up with Kusa, but yet still leave a wood core. Because if whatever reason down the road, if this transom were to leak and there were to be some moisture, caught up in that plywood, it could potentially lead to a transom rot. So to replace that, you would basically have to rip out all this Kusa to access the plywood. And I don't know. It's just a little bit of a dilemma. I don't know what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to hold off on that because I don't need to make that decision today. But I think I'm going to hold off on that until I get the rest of this G10 removed, the rest of this opened up, and just have a little bit better picture because I still haven't been able to access the very bottom of the transom. Now, if the bottom of the transom is cooked, well, obviously then the whole thing is going to have to get redone. But if the bottom is still as solid as the middle and the top, I don't know. I don't know what makes more sense. If you have some opinion on that, let me know down below in the comments. Now, as far as the work that was done on here, honestly, it really wasn't much. Like I mentioned before, there was no additional beefing up or anything that was done other than the addition of these the G10 panels, which were essentially just backers for the mounting hardware on the bracket. The old keyholes, they were filled in with some really good quality pine. Yep. There's even a nice little knot right here. So good quality pine, sarcasm. But beyond that, that's it. He took some the person took some chop strand matting, just basically loaded it up with some poly resin and just kind of packed it in here. It's just, no. But yeah, so just that and the 5200 and these G10 backers. Now, I'm going to start a little thing here with a new little hashtag, which I've never done before, and that's going to be hashtag don't ever use 5200, all right? This stuff's a pain in the ass to deal with. So when I first started, I guess, working on this, I started over on this corner and worked over to the starboard. Now, it took me 3 hours, or actually a little bit more than that, better part of an afternoon, I'm closer to 4. 4 hours to do basically from here to right here. This is kind of where I had to make my first cut, and that's, well, about 14 inches, give or take. 3.5, 4 hours to do a little over a foot, right? So I just kind of started, getting a little bit frustrated. I'm thinking, there is no way I'm gonna be able to get all this ripped out in less than, the one panel alone would have taken me a few days. So that was a little unacceptable. Yeah, I was, again, a little bit frustrated too. So I jumped online and I started looking at products that, if there were any products that were designed to kind of break down, that was a polyurethane. Yeah, I think it's polyurethane glue that the 5200 is. And there are a few, like Unbonder and Bond Breaker, and there's a few of them. People use like acetone or Goo Gone or a number of products. But none of them were really going to do me any good because I had to order them and with the shipping, and they wouldn't have been here in time, and I wanted to get this part out. So I was kind of sitting there at the desk, and I remembered that this cleaner, I used it once. Again, it's not how it's intended to be used. It is a cleaner and dewaxer, and that's how it's marketed. But I remember at one point I was cleaning up some excess caulking. I put a piece of hardware down, and you had the excess caulking that squeezed out. I remember this stuff worked slicker than slick for cleaning up all that excess squeeze out. So I thought, well, what the hell? I mean, it can't hurt to try it. So I brought the can up, pried back what I had, loosened up a little bit up to here, pried it back a little bit, and just kind of poured some in. And just like that, you could instantly hear something was going on. I don't know what it was, but something was fizzing and cracking, and it's just, I don't know what it was doing, what it was breaking down, but it was doing something. And so I let it sit for about 15-20 minutes, and then came back and started pounding again. Well, if it took me 3-4 hours to do this, it took me about an hour to get from here to here. Huge difference. I mean, it just peeled right off. Now, I did also try, and I think I'm going to include this in this video, I did try using some heat. I brought my heat gun up here, and I had it cranked up on high, which is stupid hot. I mean, it'll light anything on fire. But so I came in and I used a heat gun on here, and I got the surface, I mean, hot, you couldn't even touch it. I mean, it got to the point where it was starting to burn glass. So got it as hot as I could get it, and while it did help a little bit, it didn't really help all that much. Essentially what it is, it softened up the 5200 to the point where it became more elastic, so you could pull the sections out farther, but it didn't really separate anything. It didn't break anything down. And the area that you can heat is so small. I mean, you can really only keep an area of about like this hot, before it starts to cool off. But so you get it heated up, you pull it back, and the glass or the surface was dumping the heat so quick, you couldn't like heat up a large area and try and pull it back. It wasn't working for me. The G10 is just too thick, which is, I think it's like 1/2 inch thick material. So going forward, I'm pretty much sold on using this cleaner solvent stuff for at least making the removal of these G10 panels with the 5200, just making it easier. So that's going to be the process I'm going to be using going forward. And hopefully now I do have a bit of a process down. Hopefully the rest of this will go a lot faster. But for right now, unfortunately, I'm out of time for this week. So this is, unfortunately, this is all I was able to do. But I did get some troubleshooting done and got a few answers solved. So I guess, I'll take that. So with that said, I'm gonna have to close out this video here. So as always, I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, hit that thumbs up button. If you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. Love to have you on board. If you have any questions, comments, you can leave those down below. And as always, thank you for your time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week, hopefully with the rest of this stuff removed and completely opened up so we can get a better assessment. Have a great weekend. I'll see you then.
This has been a Boatworks Today production.